Grenville was hardly through getting Parliament to enact revenue-raising measures on the colonies. Enacted on March 22, 1765, Parliament placed upon the colonies a direct tax on a variety of licenses, publications, and legal papers. Called the Stamp Act, the measure was the first direct tax made upon the American colonies by Parliament. To comply with the act necessitated the purchase of special stamped paper. The act would become effective on November 1st, 1765. A firestorm erupted in the colonies. Unlike the response to the Sugar Act, which brought an outcry from only 4 of the colonies most affected, the Stamp Act brought about a unified outcry from all of the 13 colonies. The Stamp Act set forth a tax on each and every use of vellum or parchment, more than 50 itemized uses, and the tax would be paid by purchasing a stamp like the one shown here. The South Carolina Assembly set forth the fundamental argument of the colonies succinctly.
It is inseparably essential to the freedom of a people and to the undoubted rights of Englishmen that no taxes be imposed upon them but by their own consent.
To make matters worse, Parliament required that all violators of the Stamp Act be tried at the discretion of the prosecutor in admiralty courts in any part of His Majesty's realm, thereby denying the accused of a trial before a jury of his peers. In Virginia, the outcry against the Stamp Act became noteworthy. At Williamsburg, on May 29th, 30th, and 31st, 1765, members of the Virginia House of Burgesses, known as the General Assembly, considered 7 resolutions against the Stamp Act introduced by the newly elected Patrick Henry of Louisa County. Henry was 29 years old. Of the 116 members of the General Assembly, only 39 were seated. Henry's resolutions, presented here in his own handwriting, embodied all of the objections the colonies would voice against Great Britain's attempt to levy taxes on them, wrote Patrick Henry.
Resolved, that the first adventurers, settlers of His Majesty's colony and dominions of Virginia, brought with them and transmitted to their posterity, and all other of His Majesty's subjects, since inhabiting in this His Majesty's colony, all the privileges, franchises, and immunities that have at any time been held, enjoyed, and possessed by the people of Great Britain. Resolved, that by 2 royal charters granted by King James I, the colony aforesaid are declared and entitled to all intents and purposes as if they had been abiding and born within the realm of England. Resolved, that His Majesty's liege people of this His ancient colony have enjoyed the right of being thus governed by their own assembly in the article of taxes and internal police, and the same have never been forfeited or any other way yielded up, but have been constantly recognized by the King and people of Great Britain. Resolved, therefore, that the General Assembly of this colony, together with His Majesty or his substitute, have in their representative capacity the only exclusive right and power to lay taxes and imposts upon the inhabitants of this colony, and that every attempt to vest such power in any other person or persons whatever than the General Assembly aforesaid is illegal, unconstitutional, and unjust, and have a manifest tendency to destroy British as well as American liberty.
And then Henry went farther.
Resolved, that His Majesty's liege people, the inhabitants of this colony, are not bound to yield obedience to any law or ordinance whatever designed to impose any taxation whatsoever upon them other than the laws or ordinances of the General Assembly aforesaid. Resolved, that any person who shall, by speaking or writing, assert or maintain that any person or persons other than the General Assembly of this colony have any right or power to impose or levy taxation on the people here shall be deemed an enemy to His Majesty's colony.
Of those 39 members of the General Assembly who heard Patrick Henry's resolutions, a majority voted to pass the first 5 of those resolves. Although the last 2 of the resolves were not passed by the General Assembly, all 7 of the resolves were printed in the Newport Mercury of June 24, 1765, and the Annapolis, Maryland Gazette on July 4, 1765, leading many to believe all the resolutions had been adopted.